Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next session, the future role of product displays, otherwise known as marketing to the mindful shopper. And you'll understand that transition after we're done talking today. If you haven't bumped into me somewhere else over the last 3 days already, my name is Peter Breen. I'm editor-in-chief of the Path to Purchase Institute, and I will be one of your presenters here. With that, I am going to bring our co-presenter in, Lynn, to talk about how shoppers have become more mindful. Lynn, take it away.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. It's certainly over the 3 days we've been together and listening to the great set of speakers and knowledge going on, that it's been quite a year. And there are different angles to come at it and respond to it. One of the things that Peter and I are looking at in this case is not only taking the data from the survey, but really getting to a pragmatic, understanding of some of the mindset and how our retailers are responding and how we might respond along with them. You saw that last slide that Peter had on the data, where you see we're actually seeing more traffic back into the stores, and this is really that segue from high anxiety. If you remember back March, April, even when cases were lower, just the prospect and the new and the threat really took us to a higher anxiety on getting out. And now we've been living with it for a bit. The threat's actually technically higher with the number of cases we're seeing. However, we see a shift in the shopper from being as anxious to making sure they're mindful, making sure they're careful. And the data plays that out as we see trips come back to the store. And so what we're going to talk to today about this mindful shopper is really understanding some of those new realities and some of our pragmatic new responses, ones we're seeing at the retail level and the ones that we're seeing amongst shopper marketers, and how we can take that even farther. Let's pause and recognize how we got to this spot and why the worry and anxiety. We certainly can see and hear the news, but let's also understand the role that retail is playing on sending this message to us, and it's part of our new realities. The first one is that the shopping trip itself poses a new risk proposition that we hadn't seen before. Something we have to be careful about, and it's adding a lot to our mental lift beyond the products themselves. Any cue you have outside of the store sends a very physical and personal reminder that this is different and I need to be careful. When we enter our favorite retail environments, instead of being excited about the promotions and what's opportunity is in store for us inside, we get the warnings, all the ones on what's required to come in, and even ones that will take you and say, turn around if you're feeling this way at all. And that continues inside of the stores, from make sure you don't go this way to make sure you do go that way, and also that you need to stand here. We can manage this on our own, respectfully, with our co-shoppers there. We can imagine this extra layer it adds onto our mental list. And even in the store, sometimes we're queued up in spots where we're going to have to interact with folks that we don't know what their habits and practices have been. We can only take it by what we see taking place in store. And these new items just add to that mindfulness that when I go to the store, it's about having a successful trip, but it's also about making sure I'm taking care of myself, making sure I'm taking my family, and doing this all responsibly. A second new reality is that we've got frenemies, and these frenemies distract and make shoppers forget while they're in store. Now, who's a frenemy? Boy, it's our shopping peers right there. Before, when we were looking down this aisle, we'd look and try to make sure that we were in the right aisle for frozen dinners. Now we're looking down and understanding, all right, how many people? Okay, there's a mask, there's a cart. And the shopper will literally make a decision as to whether this aisle is safe to go down at this moment, or whether they might need to return to it. And that sounds like a small thing, but it's really important to us, for our retailers and for our shopper marketers. Most shoppers are still operating on a mental list, and they're mission driven inside this store. They're mindful of getting in and getting out efficiently. There is a high risk that items on our list can be forgotten. From a behavioral science standpoint, we can only hang on to like 3 or 5 nuggets of memories at any moment in time. So that mental list. And we've all experienced this, where we've gone for an important trip to the store, and for the life of us, we can't trigger on what that last item was, or we get to our car and we realize we forgot it. All of these things we see in store now, regarding our frenemies, regarding the other issues, they're crowding our mental space and pushing out some of those important list items. So when you're looking down this aisle and considering it as a risk decision, it's not just a risk decision to your health. It's also a risk decision to what you want to accomplish on that shopping mission at that time. So when we think about areas that are supposed to inspire us, whether it's our own displays or for some impulse or unplanned purchases, whether it's that mental list we had on items that we wanted to pick up in the deli or any other store, or areas that could just cause and prompt us to think about something different. They're now fighting for that mental space because we have a whole new layer of this shopper being mindful while traveling through the store and crowding out the list of things that they wanted to do and get. Another new reality is that shoppers are watching. This is really important for our retailers, important, for what the dynamics are in store. And a lot of it goes unsaid, but it all goes seen. And we've all seen this. And here's the challenge of this in an area. I mean, it is a challenge for associates, personnel, shoppers themselves to adhere to the guidelines and do what's safe for everybody. You can imagine associates that have been there for hours on ends. But at the same time, shoppers are definitely looking to see what's happening. And they'll think, boy, if I see this kind of out in the front, I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So it causes a little question, adds to that mindfulness, can even take it back to that anxiety. And you'll actually see some shoppers reconsidering some of their retail choices, at least on frequency or the hours they might go based on what they see as some perceived safety concerns. The last new reality that we've captured right here, just more adjustments are required. Recognize how we're in this transitional phase. And you have seen in some of the other sections that we've had throughout the session here at Path to Purchase that there's some great adjustments being made, but recognize that we are in a transition phase on what our new reality is. And you see our retail partners really kind of working with this, both at ad hoc and what's permanent. It's going to be far more than stickers on the floor. So they've got hard, tangible assets that they need to understand how to repurpose. What does the Asian bar become when you can't have self-serve here? It's probably not long-term going to be a Cheetos display. Likewise, we see some individual packaging and repurpose in some self-serve areas. Again, interim steps we need to make, and there are a number of interim steps around us, but they're likely not the long-term solutions, right? How much are we going to trust, even when things abate a bit? How much are we going to trust multiple people handling the items before us, that they're following protocol, that they're doing it with the same adherence that store personnel might do? How will we handle shopping on a display when someone's already there and we're very interested? Are we queuing up at the ends of aisles? And how can we help our retail partners mitigate that challenge that they have in store? So we've hit on 4 new realities that our retailers are facing, that we with our brands are facing. And this leads us to understanding that it has never been more important to serve the shopper and help our retailers in doing so. That brings about some new responses. So for a mindful shopper, we need to have mindful retailing and mindful shopper marketing. And let's be clear on what our end goal here is. You want the shopper to be able to participate in the retailer and remain open-minded both to their list and the new prompts that we might provide to them. But they have to do this safely and confidently. And Peter, I think you'll share some examples of what retailers are doing in that very space.
Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, and that was a great setup, I think, for what we're going to be talking about next. Just, understanding what's going through the minds of the shoppers as they're going through the stores now, what kind of expectations they might have in the future. And so the first thing we wanted to look at was some ways in which retailers are responding and changing the way they are marketing within the store to be more mindful about these changing shopper needs. And I guess the first, probably most obvious one is the promotion of their new fulfillment opportunities. Again, these were things that were being offered, but not by everybody before this year, but now are pretty much being offered by everyone. And if you go into supermarkets these days, mass merchants, a lot of the in-store marketing package is devoted to promoting these alternative methods, even to the point where you're a shopper going down the aisle in the supermarket and you're looking at signs that saying, next time you don't have to come into the store. You can just pick it up at the curb. So just a different way of retailers responding to the needs of shoppers. And you see here on the image on the left, the image on the right, we got a little bit of brand activity here. I don't know if this was a commercial plan or anything that was negotiated, but just something for brands to be thinking about in terms of how they can help market. We've certainly seen brands helping retailers market alternative fulfillment online, and so maybe this is an opportunity here within the store to reconsider how you're getting exposure. Next thing to look at is convenience. Again, not something that's brand new, but something that really has been heightened this year, given all of the concerns, making it as easy as possible for shoppers to get into the store, find what they need, and get out quickly without having to spend too much additional time and travel too much elsewhere where they don't really need to be. A little contradictory to kind of the traditional retailing strategy of keeping them in as long as they could and getting them to every section of the store. But again, need to address the changing expectations of shoppers. So here we've got Target. It's an urban environment, but they've got a grab and go section right up at the front of the store where shoppers can come in if they're looking for lunch or dinner, grab it, get right back out without having to go anywhere else within the store. So just another thing to keep in mind. Similarly with perimeter ordering, and again, this is something that we've been seeing for a while, but the deli experience used to be go there, get your ticket with the number on it, stand there for however long, and then place your order, wait for it to be done. We have seen kiosks being set up in the deli where shoppers could go place their order and then get called back when the order is ready. Lately, we have seen retailers like Stop and Shop over there to the right, putting the kiosk right in the front of the store so they can begin right away before they even do anything else. And then also, of course, going more digital, bringing the omni-channel experience into it and allowing them to use the retailer app to place their orders at the deli. Also in the area of promotions, again, bringing the omni-channel experience into the store, moving toward touchless options, which could, of course, as Lynn was saying, be an important issue in the future. Even also here, of course, some sustainability concerns being addressed, moving away from the paper coupon to a downloadable version. But you use the retailer app and you download your coupons from there. Instead of bringing the paper coupon to checkout, you've got it there on your phone. Or if you decide you're going to buy online, you've also got it there on your phone. Next, sampling. Now, of course, this is an area that was really hit pretty hard this year. The idea of sampling products within the store. Most retailers shut this down entirely for a long time. Not all of them have even come back. But I think this is a good example here of how things might be transitioning. All of these pictures are from Whole Foods. On the left, from 2019, your traditional sampling setup. You've got a person there who is setting up little samples of the product to hand out to shoppers as they pass by. Probably not going to fly this year, right? So on the right, this is from last week. We found this in a Whole Foods store. Maybe this is the 2020 and beyond version of sampling. No person involved. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a sneeze guard there in front of the product. But the product itself isn't open air samples. It is trial size samples of the product that shoppers, I guess they could eat it there, but they could also take it to the back to the safety of their home and try it out there. A lot of promotional materials added here too, in order to help present the brand message without having somebody involved. Next, again, looking at the omni-channel experience within the store, the inventory. No matter how big the store is, it is always still limited to some extent on the amount of items that it can offer. So if you're in the store and you don't find what you're looking for, give them the option of checking out the website to see if they can find it there. This picture is actually a few years old. So again, this is not something that is brand new to any extent, but again, something we do expect to see more of as we go forward, especially given some of the things that have happened this year in terms of brands and retailers scaling back on the total number of SKUs that are being offered within the store to focus really on the higher selling items within the physical store and then offering the option for purchase online for some of the other things. And checkout, of course, there's probably no area of the store that's undergone more of a transformation over the past few years than checkout. We've been seeing it happen as stores started adding the self-checkout lanes. And so the conversation about what happens to impulse buying, what happens to checkout merchandising has been on a lot of brands' minds for a while now. Only, of course, heightened now. On the left, you see your traditional setup with all of the products that you can buy as you're waiting in line at a Jewel. On the right, you see checkout at the brand new Amazon Fresh store. Not a product in sight. So a very important area where brands are going to have to work with retailers to rethink what they've been doing in the store. And then finally, before I turn it back over to Lynn, just another area to look at in terms of the omni-channel experience and making things easier and safer within the store. Product trial. On the left, you've got your standard traditional cosmetic sampler, right? We all know these can get a little bit of a little messy. They require maintenance, and ultimately they're going to run out of product. On the right, you've got something that Target has tested in stores. Same concept, but it is a virtual experience that, again, could be replicated online if the shopper wanted to. But there's no mess, there's no product to replace, and it's just a very smoother experience for the shoppers. Okay, and with that, I'll turn it back over to Lynn to start looking at some of the ways that shopper marketers can be more mindful about what they're doing in the store.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. It's important to understand, that our retailers are moving with this. We've had the initial adjustments that we talked in our new realities, and this is where you see some of those new realities turning into some, long-term choices that we have. Because as we've all learned, this isn't going to end with a snap of the fingers overnight. It is going to be a gradual change, and won't we all be reminded about some of the things we had to do to protect ourselves? So who knows when 6 foot distancing or recommended masks are going to disappear from our lexicon. For now, we need to understand and plan for them. And that leads us to some areas of mindful shopper marketing. If 2020 was anything, we've all heard the adage, that it's hard to change habits. You kind of nudge them. And that's normally what we do. Well, 2020 gave shopper habits a big shove. And it accelerated some things that were on an organic path. But now that we've had that shove, and you saw from Peter's earlier data that some of it's actually coming back to in-store, we're ended up with a new equilibrium of habits. But we ought to recognize where some of these changes occurred and take advantage of them. Let's work with where the shopper's been nudged to, how retailers are responded, and what our actions are in the space. So here you see inside of a Walmart, those large pickup columns you see there are where they'd have their locker. So I've placed an order online. I know that I can come in and securely enter my locker and get my products. However, this is a new habit that a shopper has been nudged to. But now you've got increased traffic in this area, and those shoppers are still open to some impulse or some unplanned purchases. So you see a Pepsi display case here that has some impulse products that they can pick up conveniently and safely, and there's a self-checkout close by. So while they're still on their new habit, you can picture that this pickup station could live completely on its own. They come get their locker. There's an important opportunity right there to meet the shopper at that moment and understand that they might be open to an impulse purchase, something refreshing while they're picking up their order from Walmart. Likewise, all of these pickup opportunities provide new habits, both for our retailers and our shoppers. And it's important as shopper marketers to recognize where are our shoppers physically going to be, and what's their mental state at that time, and what are their real actions when they're doing this. So what you see here is a regular pickup station that you have at Publix. You see a drive-by pickup at even a Home Depot right here. So it transcends just grocery and others. Both are learnings across, whether it's grocery, home improvement in this case, or retailing in general. What we're hearing is that shoppers that will order online for curbside pickup, many of them will park their vehicle afterwards and then come in for an additional shopper item. So that's a great thing to know, that the shopper isn't completely lost to the store. They're actually opportunistically coming in. But think about these spaces right now, on what the frequency is of your shopper here. Is there a merchandising opportunity? Is there a messaging opportunity for those shoppers that are already inclined to come in the store, or might be, with a small nudge? Let them know about something that's going on that they can pick up conveniently and safely, that might be relevant for the moment. So you can almost think of it as a physical store expanding in a way for our shopper marketing. Certainly some things have changed inside, but the border, the perimeter is now got some softer edges. And we, with the changing mentality of the shopper and their habits, can certainly get on that path and help understand where they are and take advantage of their mindset and their openness to consider some of our products at that time. Peter mentioned earlier the changing aisle space. So you saw about, whether it's the self-checkout or the automated checkout, there are quite literally some physical things to consider now. We have built a legacy of checkout spaces counting on people queued up in a tight line and having dwell right there. Well, what happens when it's one person at the register and the next person 6 feet back? And the next person 6 feet back? They're probably across the main aisle or near to it by then. So it doesn't mean that we've lost the ability to speak to and meet the needs of our shopper at that moment in time, but we might need to do it in a different way. So here's an example you see of Kellogg's, a smaller execution, but it provides some multi-sided access to products. Simple to reach, simple to grab, certainly shaped for an easy impulse type purchase. And this might be sort of the new direction of how we help shoppers with that dwell time. Where are their pause moments? As you're working with your retail partners, understand what the queuing looks like in a store now. And when that shopper is at that moment, how are we best meeting their needs? Peter showed some examples earlier of retailers, expanding their in-store reach. We all know the power of an efficient assortment. And in these times where we're mindful shoppers and we're trying to be quicker, a simple choice hierarchy really helps. We'll talk that a little bit in design later. But what we see retailers doing can also work on the brand side. So when you're thinking about your in-store executions, how are you meeting the shopper's immediate needs, but also how are you inspiring them for what might be a future engagement that you have? So we'll see some that have base product present, and then there might be something that digitally inspires them to something that they hadn't thought about, whether it's a new recipe for the moment, et cetera. But you could also use it to expose them to parts of your portfolio they might not be aware of. Now, here's the one caveat right here. We still encourage you to make sure you handle job one, meeting their in-store need and their closure need, really exceptionally well right there. And if you have some other opportunity to engage them, make sure it's complementary and not interruptive. One of the things we want to do from a behavioral science standpoint is enable them to stay in their system one thinking, accomplish that mental list, do it simply, don't knock them off the path. But once they've successfully done that, if you have a simple, relevant connection that they can make in store, it's a great opportunity in their new mindfulness. Here's a wonderful example of a before-after that plays off of that. On the left, you'll see, we call it a traditional Coke display. What's great here, even in COVID times, is it's shoppable from multiple sides. So you can actually have more than one shopper partaking in this. A couple of things that they've done, really effectively here that you see on the right side. One of our mantras that we'd say in the new environment, simplicity and clarity, has always been powerful in shopper marketing and in store. We were already working with shoppers that have a lot on their mind and might not be focused. We talked earlier about how that mindfulness makes that space even more crowded in our shopper's mind. What Coke has done here is very simply and effectively is signaled their brand. Okay, so there's no way you can miss what brand is representing this. They've done it in a way that's immediately recognizable and refreshing, both using the bottle shape and using the lighting. But what they've also done right here is provide the ability to inspire for more. And it's a great example of the vendor working with the retailer on saying, we've got a high destination here. We're going to get high recognizability. How can we help prompt the shopper to consider something else in the store? And so what they've provided on the digital screen there is ability for some simple meal solutions that obviously involve Coke, but involve some items that are handily available in the store. Not things that are going to take deep recipes, but things that they can quickly meet their immediate needs safely and confidently in that store. And this is a great area where Coke is providing not only that instant recognition for themselves, but also partnering with a retailer to try to add to that basket. And then we'd be remiss to say if that the idea of solutions, matters more than ever here. Here's a wonderful example from Kraft on the left. They've actually taken a cooler and been able to mount related product to it for some of their inspired desserts that they have. So it's a great 1-2 punch that causes the shopper to meet their needs in this spot and be inspired. And it can be shot from two sides, by the way, which is we often forget our ability to set that up on an in-cap presentation. And it's a wonderfully creative way to do that with a cooler, create some in-benefit visualization of the desserts you might be able to get and provide it all in one spot. On the right, you see the 3M execution for back to school. It's hard to rattle off all the products that would be ready and available for back to school, but in this one display that they have, they've created a destination for it, shoppable from 4 sides and meeting a number of shopper needs. Now, additionally to providing solutions, one of the things that we tapped in earlier about simplicity and effectiveness is it is more important than ever to make sure that when a shopper is looking at your display, looking at your in-store execution, looking at your communication, that it's noticeable and relatable in an instant. What's the context for the setup? What are the participating brands? So here's a great example that you have that immediately demonstrates the timeliness of the season, does so in an inviting way, and they have multiple products available for the solution. And they've done something here where they did that second part we talked about broadening your inspiration a little bit beyond the immediate products with their Pinterest link here. They're not letting it overwhelm the message on the fall snack products, but they are letting here's a place you can go for inspiration and take this even farther. So really well done on their end. We've hit on quite a bit today, on new responses about both mindful retail and shopper marketing, again, with that idea of getting to a safe and confident shopping trip that's helping our shoppers perform their tasks more efficiently and more confidently. Some key takeaways that we have right here, we'll just kind of summarize as an overall umbrella, is we certainly have some new realities that we're facing. It's our shared challenge with our retailers, okay? And more than ever, they need partners to try to effectively address this challenge. Our new responses are going to include a few things. First and foremost, recognize the spot that our retailers in and their longer term solutions. Stickers on the floor were an immediate, effective, necessary step to take. That is a very early step in what's going to be a longer journey. So the winning vendors right here, both with retailers and with shoppers, are going to be the ones that recognize the retailer need and the challenges they're facing and ensure they show up as partners. Now, yes, it's part about providing your product portfolio, but what you're really doing is trying to provide solutions and partnership ideas in a very tough time. We hope you've seen it during all of the 3 days, but in this session as well. Make sure you're open to breaking out of the tried and true. Honestly, it was a little bit shocking to see that Pareto chart that Peter shared at the beginning that showed we're kind of doing the same things that we've done in the past. Now, that's not to say we ought to abandon them. We show that we've got shoppers coming back in the store. Shoppers going to want to shop, in some traditional ways. But it is time for us to think about what are the new dynamics in the store? What are the dynamics going on with my retailer, the shopper's mindfulness? How do I handle the spacing in store? How can I do this so that the shopper recognizes me clearly and also knows what I have to offer beyond the traditional? So this is a great time to stretch our creative wings, both with traditional tactics, but also consider some new items that help integrate the communication that's happening both in and out of store. And finally, one of the new responses is just the fundamentals. What Peter mentioned earlier on brand creative, never more important, and it's got to work harder. And in this way, part of working harder is making sure you're seen. This doesn't mean that it's garish and blinking lights. What it means usually is that it's simpler, that you can identify what it is from a distance and recognize it, and a shopper can approach it with confidence. The second piece is to make sure that the communication is simple. We've all as marketers had this trained in, that having a single-minded focus on what we're trying to communicate. And we still see in cell check too many brands trying to pack too much in. And instead of communicating a stronger, more compelling story, they end up diluting the strong conversion story that they have right out of the gate. And the second one is make sure you keep that compellingness. So when you're telling that story, telling that one thing, simple and in a convincing way, will certainly lead to a stronger close. It has been a crazy year. And I think none of us are naive to think that it's going to let up anytime soon. But we can actually see the responses our retailers are making. We can see the responses that the brand vendors are making through their shopper marketing. It is a great time to collaborate and push a little farther in a way that makes it a great experience for the shopper. With Peter, I'll hand that back over to you.
Thank you, Lynn. Just so many tremendous insights and perspectives there. A lot to think about, a lot to change going forward. But as you just said, also plenty of traditional strengths that we can build off of when it comes to in-store marketing. So thank you so much. We are kind of running out of time. I want to make sure you're going to be able to get over to the auditorium to hear Whitney Cooper from Walmart talking about omnichannel transformation. So we aren't going to answer any questions at this point, but I would like to invite you to contact either of us with any questions that you might have had, and we'll be happy to get back to you on that. Again, hope you had a great show so far. Hope you enjoy Whitney Cooper. Come on back over the next 30 days. Bring some friends with you. There's still a lot of learning and a lot of understanding to be had. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being part of the Path to Purchase Institute community. Please fill out those evaluation forms because they're going to help us in the future. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.